welcome to the End Times Watch podcast. This is episode number 1 with David and Jimmy here, and we are coming to you from the headquarters of It Ain't Over Ministries. Today, this is going to be the first episode of the End Times Watch podcast. I'm going to turn it over to Jimmy here in just a minute and let him explain to you more what the podcast is going to be about, and we are going to record these as often as we are led to. We do have a set schedule of publishing once a month. If anything happens in current events or something important comes up that we feel like we need to bring a special episode, then we'll do so in between our regularly scheduled episodes. These are going to be going live. We're not recording them live. We're not live streaming them. They will go out published on our platforms the third Tuesday of every month, starting now in January 2024. So we just ask that you join us, comment, like, subscribe, share, do all the normal YouTube-y stuff down there. And that's what we're going to be doing. So, Jimmy, you want to explain a little bit about what the End Times Watch podcast is?
What it is basically is, first of all, I'll tell you what it is not. It is not prophecy. Okay, we're not prophets. We don't claim to be prophets, but some of this is of a prophetic type program, being that we do discuss issues that pertain to the end times. And of course, we are living in the last days. And those it could be events surrounding Israel, things going on in other parts of the world, what have you. If you are a student of the Bible, you know about the book of Revelation and the things it foretells, plus all throughout the Bible, especially in the New Testament, about there's going to becoming a day where there's going to be a lot of changes in the world, about about the rapture, about other things happening leading up to it and following it. And so this is what this program is geared towards. This is what we talk about on this program, to help you to keep in mind for the end times, not to go around in panic mode, not to feel like you need to go build you a bunker and get you 5 years supply of food and water. We don't do that sort of thing. That's not what we're here for. But, that's basically what this program is going to be about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're not here to instill fear and try to hype everything up or hype up the return of Jesus, or, what we want to do is take what God is showing us in the current event headlines from all your news sources around the world and show you how Bible prophecy is unfolding before our eyes, and how that we are in the last days. We know that Jesus has been set to come back. We know churches have been proclaiming this, preachers and evangelists. Jesus is coming back. He's coming back soon. There's even been date setters that have set dates in 1980, 82, 84, even prior to that. But that's not what you can expect from us. There'll be no hype. There'll be no frills. There'll be no exaggeration of anything that we show you. We're just going to show you clearly what Scripture says, what's happening in current events that pertains to the end times, and leave it to you to prayerfully make your own decision on the matter. But we just ask that everything that we say here, you take to the Lord in prayer. And if you agree with us, great. If you don't, then that's great too. But we also ask that you comment and engage in conversation with us over this topic. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jimmy and let him get started with this episode number 1 of the End Times Watch podcast.
Thank you. One thing that everyone needs to understand and know and realize is that Israel, specifically Jerusalem, is the center of the Bible prophecy, and so on. You read through the Bible's pages, prophecy after prophecy of after prophecy, whether they're about Jesus, whether they're about other things that happen. It's always something basically pertaining to Israel. I say always, virtually always. There are some other specific prophecies directed at different individuals and scenarios and so forth. But everything centers on Israel. Everything centers on Jerusalem. Uh, that is the land. That region is what God originally gave Abram, later called Abraham, the ancestor of the Jewish people. It is their land. It has always been their land by God's decree, and it always will be their land. All these claims that have been made about Palestine and so on and so forth, and a two-state solution, that's just not. It does not line up with the Bible. It's not legitimate as far as God is concerned. You can go back to the 13th chapter of Genesis, verses 14 through 17, and read right there for yourself where God decreed at that time, way back several thousand years ago, that land would be given to Abram and his descendants forever. The name of Palestine came about in the 100s AD thanks to a Roman emperor named Hadrian, who called that area Palestine just to humiliate the Jews because he didn't like them. Ironically, roughly 50 years after the city of Jerusalem and the Second Temple were destroyed in 70 AD, Hadrian had the city rebuilt. I don't recall the exact name that he had gave it, but it wasn't Jerusalem. And of course, the Jewish people rebelled because of that, because that was an insult to them too. I found it interesting that the pagan ruler had the city rebuilt after it had been destroyed, but Jerusalem's been around for a long time. That land has been around for a long time, and it belongs to the people of Israel and no one else. Now, what's happening right now, those of you who have followed the news at all know that about 3 months ago, as of this recording, an attack was launched against Israel by the Palestinian terror organization Hamas. And now, more than 90 days into the battle, it's still ongoing. As a matter of fact, they're starting to experience a threat from another terror group that's been around for a while called Hezbollah, which is a Lebanese terrorist group. They're both radical Islamic terror groups. That's what they're contending with right now. They're still fighting. They're still trying to root out individuals who are part of Hamas and rescue hostages and things of that nature. But there's a lot of conflict going on over there. But the Jews have always been up against it. They have always been opposed ever since they've been around. Shamefully, even the church has opposed them in the past. Because the Jewish leadership back in Jesus' day worked to help to orchestrate the proceedings that got him crucified, a resentment developed among the early Christians towards the Jewish religion, and they had a hostile and negative attitudes towards the Jewish people. Yes, the Jewish people are under obligation to be saved through Jesus Christ, like we all are, because the old covenant has been annulled. We are under the new covenant now, which Jesus purchased with his own blood. At the same time, that being said, the Jews are still God's chosen people. Romans chapter 11, has God cast off his people? Some translations say, God forbid. Others say, certainly not. God has not, nor will he ever cast off his people, and the church has not replaced Israel. Replacement theology, throw it away. It's garbage. He wants them to be saved, just like he wants other people to be saved. They're his people, and they are the apple. Israel is the apple of his eye, and he will fight for Israel. How else do you explain how a tiny country surrounded by enemies reappeared on the political map in 1948 after not having reappeared for a long time, and has stood up to many enemies, being vastly outnumbered, and yet they've always come out on top? How do you explain that other than divine intervention? Because God watches over Israel. He watches over them to protect it. And anybody who comes against Israel, who comes against the Jews, is going to come to a bad end if they don't repent. That's just the way it is. Now, with that being said, since we are also talking about the last days, and of course, Israel is once again under attack, as we just got through saying, there are other things that are ramping up. Before I get into that, give you a real brief review that in the Revelation, once the church has been raptured, there will be a leader called, which we call the Antichrist, who shares a lot of the characteristics of the end times Mahdi of Islam, by the way, who will arise and rule the world. He will not rule it perfectly because even during the tribulation there will be wars and such, but there will be some sort of an apparatus in place for him to be able to control, exercise a considerable degree of control over the world. And that's where the globalists come in. And no, they're not necessarily working with one particular group of people. The globalists want a one world government, or at least a government for all the nations to get up under and to work with. Okay. These individuals are very intelligent, maybe even idealistic, perhaps even naive. Uh, some of them are very powerful, they're very influential, and they are using their money and their resources, their talents, to help to hammer together a structure in which there will be a world governing body. Now, the UN already serves that purpose. The UN came into being in the wake of World War II in 1945. There were supposed to be elements of peacekeeping associated with it, but it has since branched out into many different organizations. You have the World Health Organization, which we heard all about during COVID, and we're still hearing about it. There's the World Meteorological Organization with climate change. It's got a lot of different tentacles attached to it, but it serves as the nearest thing to an international or global governing body. Although for almost all the countries of the earth, which there are roughly 200, I'm just rounding off, almost all the countries of the earth are members of the UN. There may be a very few who are not. And even though their countries retain a lot of their sovereignty right now, the idea is for that to go away in the future. And one of those is for the World Health Organization to have the power to declare pandemics and epidemics, different areas of the world or in the world at any time, and do what they need to do, overriding the sovereignty of different nations and the ability for them to do some of the things they would like to do. Now, in this day and time, one of the driving forces behind globalization, as far as organizations concerned, one of the biggest ones besides the United Nations would be the World Economic Forum, which exists over in Switzerland. It was founded in 1971 by a man named Klaus Schwab. He's still alive. He's well into his 80s now. And the World Economic Forum is working, or has been working for a long time, to build together a new world order, which has been dumped on for a long time as a conspiracy theory. Now, yes, I'm going to go on my phone. I pulled this up. I'm just going to look at it briefly to show you it's not a conspiracy theory. This comes from Business Today, August 2023. World Economic Forum president envisions India's rise to G3 status in global economy. What is that? The president of the World Economic Forum, Borje Brinde, if I pronounced that right, on Saturday said that India, U.S., and China will lead, get this, the new world order in the coming years. See, it's not a conspiracy theory, it's a fact. And every year, and they've been doing so for a number of years now, they hold an annual meeting in January in Davos, Switzerland. Okay. You got one this year, it's January 15th through 19th. They always have an agenda. They have different things that they want to discuss. Okay. Now, if you look back in biblical history, if you go back to the Tower of Babel, you have a man named Nimrod who was probably a giant. He was a very physically powerful, very mentally intelligent, very personally charismatic and cunning man who pulled together a world order of sorts in those days. and build a tower that was supposed to reach up to heaven. It was actually about 400, 300, 400 feet tall, which was quite a feat in the ancient world to accomplish. And certain individuals, such as the Jewish historian Josephus, who lived at the same time that the apostles did, wrote that Nimrod had said that he would avenge himself upon God if the Lord ever had a mind to flood the world again. What arrogance! Well, we know what happened in the aftermath of the Tower of Babel, that the Lord supernaturally scattered the peoples around the earth and changed all their languages so they couldn't band together like that again. What I gathered from that is there must have been a real threat of people abandoning God altogether if they were to be able to unify under this man and do whatever it was he was planning to do. Extra biblical writings tell us that there was apparently an earthquake or strong winds or something, but whatever it was a disaster powerful enough to collapse the Tower of Babel, and it killed Nimrod and his family, so they didn't have any descendants. But now in these last days, we've got these modern day Nimrods who want to rise up and build a superstructure for a world government. And this isn't going to go, I think, the way that they envision it, because you've got, again, remember, you've got a round number, approximately 200 countries in the world. That's a lot of sovereign nations. It was amazing that a lot of people even agreed to go along with these edicts from the World Health Organization to be able to do this thing with the pandemic declarations and such. But these people at the World Economic Forum, these globalists, have this idea of just totally flipping the script, totally changing the way that we live. And a lot of countries are simply not going to roll over and go along with it. Take China, for example. You know, they want to lecture us about the climate emergency, the so-called climate emergency, but they're continuing to ramp up their production of coal-fired plants. Russia, they're no big fan of the Great Reset. They don't have any noble cause because, Vladimir Putin's an evil man, okay? He used to be KGB back in the days of the Soviet Union. And there are a lot of other countries that are simply not going to give up all their sovereignty based on what these globalists and all are doing. They're not going to want to play along with it. That's not going to stop them from trying to build this thing up. That's not going to stop them from trying to put together the infrastructure to have a world government apparatus in place, complete with a governing body and the technology to make it happen. We have technology that is, frankly, it's almost terrifying. We've heard about artificial intelligence. It's on the rise. It would be a factor in helping to run the world of the future. And also there's the development of quantum computing. It's an extremely powerful way of computing that you take a regular computer and give it an extremely complex problem. Some of the problems that they have out there are so complex it could take thousands of years for our best conventional supercomputer to solve. Give it to a quantum computer and it can solve it in a matter of days or even hours. That's how powerful quantum computing is. There's no telling what kind of solutions they will come up with to try to, for these individuals to try to make this global government happen, or at least to build the superstructure for it. They're not going to give up. Sometimes I think their ideas are a little far-fetched. They're a little bit too idealistic. But again, that's not going to stop them from trying. But to tie it back to the Bible, we know that something's going to be in place because the Antichrist is not going to be able to control the world the way that he will, as portrayed in the Bible, without having some means to make it happen, without having something that he can control the lives of people. And from what I've gathered from studying the Bible, at least part of that is going to be tied to currency. And we already know there's been a lot of talk about digital money, cryptocurrency, also wanting to make the dollar digital, and so on and so forth. I don't know about you, but I want to hear the sound of coins in my pocket. I want to have cash in my wallet. I want to be able to use my bank card if I want to and not have to worry about, well, somebody saw something I posted on Facebook I didn't like, so I lose access to my money for 3 weeks. Yeah, those kinds of things can happen. They're already happening in places like China, whom, by the way, Klaus Schwab has said is a good role model for the world. Do we really want that kind of a role model with several hundred million cameras tied into databases with state of the art facial recognition technology that can recognize one individual out of a crowd of thousands, and track everything you say and do on the internet, to track everywhere you drive to in the city or even out on the highway, and that can lock down your access to your money, ability to get a job or anything else just because you said something that the government didn't like? Is that what we want? No, but that's the kind of future we're headed towards because mankind simply does not have the ability to resist playing God when he's given that much power. I don't care how high minded and noble sounding these globalists are, how benevolent they're supposed to be, how much they claim they want to make the world a better place. The fact of the matter is, you give them this kind of power, and it's going to go off the rails. And furthermore, I don't think that in the end that the people at the World Economic Forum are going to be the ones with the reins in their hands. So there is that. But now I'm going to turn it over to David because he's got some questions that he wants to ask pertaining to what we just got through discussing.
Yes. So I just want to say this before we start with these questions here. This will be the foundational episode, as we call it, because like everything that Jimmy just explained to us. Hello, I want to just apologize off the bat here because there was some serious audio interference issues going on during the first recording of this. So what I was saying is this is going to be the foundational episode that kind of sets the stage for everything that this End Times Watch podcast is going to be about. The question I asked Jimmy was the first question that he's fixing to answer shortly when we come back into the audio. It's, do George Soros, Bill Gates, and possibly others have a role to play in the reshaping of the world by the globalist? And now we'll return to the original audio where Jimmy can answer that question. Thank you and have a good day.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, those men are globalists. George Soros is one of the richest men in the world, but because
Yeah.
he's in his 90s, he's turned over his financial empire to his son, Alexander Soros, who
Mm.
says he's more political than his father. Now, there's a society of I can't remember what it's called, Open Foundations or something like that, that
Mhm.
George Soros has had for a long time, and he's also poured in money not only into that but also into other various causes. Basically, what he's done is he's ran interference in the political affairs of various countries, including the United States, who he
Right.
would very much like to see brought down. So, of course, you know about the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Now, Bill
Yes.
Gates is not a doctor, but he loves to push these vaccines. He pushed the COVID vaccine. He's talked about this stuff with the monkeypox when they thought that was going to be a thing, and
Yeah.
on and on and on. And he's another one who's Soros and Gates both are big contributors to the World Economic Forum. They're generally there at their meetings, not always, but usually. And plus, you have people like Mark Zuckerberg, who's over Meta, what used to be called
Yeah.
Facebook. Then you have various other powerful players out there, and they're globalists. King Charles is another one, formerly Prince Charles.
Yeah.
They want to reshape the world the way they see fit. That's what they are,
Wow.
globalists.
Okay. So, do you think that the COVID-19 pandemic was a key event in the plans of these globalists?
Yes. Uh,
Hmm.
I find it interesting that we had already known about coronavirus for years.
Yeah.
And back in about 2, 3 years before that, to talk about there will be more pandemics because you remember we had talked about the swine flu and Ebola and West Nile virus and all this stuff going on, but none of them really did the trick. But when coronavirus hit, boom, here go the lockdowns.
Yep.
And what does Klaus Schwab say? We have the great opportunity for the world, a great reset. You know how he talks.
That's what he said.
Yes, they
Um.
seized upon that. The Great Reset was already in the works, by the way, but they seized upon the lockdowns, the working from home, and all
Mhm.
this other stuff as an opportunity to really get their claws into the apparatus of remaking the world order.
Wow. So now we've got a pretty good idea of what the Great Reset is. So, what is the Great Narrative? Is it different than the Great Reset?
Actually, the Great Narrative is a follow up to the Great Reset, or maybe it's like the next component.
Hmm.
It is all more like a retelling. Let me grab this book right here. I'm gonna promote this book right quick.
Okay.
Okay, I got this book by Glenn Beck called Dark Future, and he
Okay.
talks about uh, the Great Narrative. He's already written a book about Great Reset. Now, in order to keep from running afoul of copyright issues, I'm not going to read it verbatim. I'm going to paraphrase. This is on page 52
And
when he describes.
just to, I'm going to insert here. We're going to put a link to that book on Amazon in the
Yeah.
description here if you want to get it yourself.
Okay, but I'm going to, like I say, I'm going to paraphrase to give you an idea. It's on page 52. The Great Narrative is a call or basically a way of to talk about how humans live and how societies function. It is in the coming of what they of Klaus Schwab has mentioned as the fourth industrial revolution, which basically is technology driven. It's
Hmm.
basically a radical resetting of the way that we view life. It's like you've heard of a paradigm shift. It's
Yes.
a paradigm shift for the whole human race.
Wow.
And to get away from the way that we've always thought about things and how we've thought about living and making money and so on and so forth. That's what the great narrative is.
Hmm.
It's a framework, and
Okay.
they've even written a book about it where they propose different solutions. I mean, you can get it. You can go online and download it PDF form. The
Okay.
great narrative, so you can do that.
Okay. And we'll include that link too in the description. Now, even though there will be a global government sooner or later, as the Bible foretells in Revelation, are the World Economic Forum's plans for such a government practical?
I don't really think so because they want to do so much to totally change the way we live. I mean, we're talking about uh, smart cities, heavy on surveillance.
Mm.
People either use public transportation, use electric powered vehicles, worldwide ID, which I think they'll have the worldwide ID sooner or later. I don't think that's so far beyond the realm of reality. But this super control over everyone's lives in every country of the world, and the claim that you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. I don't know. I mean, it would be take an awful lot of effort to make that happen. And we know from experience in the past that there's whenever somebody sets out with an idea about something,
Hmm.
the end result is virtually always different than the idea they started out with. So,
Yeah.
is it going to happen? Probably. Is it going to happen the way they think it's going to happen? Probably not. Not exactly.
No. And that's kind of the idea that I saw when I was studying communism, and how it sounded so good on the surface, but once it was implemented, once it started to take root and people became subject to that bondage, the people that actually voted for it and wanted it and helped bring it in, it was didn't work out like they had been told it would. Um, So one of my last questions here is, according to the studies that we've done and the things that we teach here at It Ain't Over Ministries, we know that Islam and the Roman Catholic Church both have a significant role to play in these last days. Can you explain to us how Islam and Roman Catholicism will play a significant role in these last days?
Well, for one thing, the region of the world the Antichrist will come from is an area that is heavily Islamic. And I mentioned earlier in this broadcast that the Islamic Mahdi of the last days, if you studied Islamic end times eschatology or Islamic eschatology, which is end time study, the Mahdi shares a lot of characteristics with our Antichrist. And if there's a religion that is as much a political organization as it is a religion, it would be Islam. And I want to plug this in here. Sooner or later, the infrastructure is going to be built for a world government, whether it's by the UN, the World Economic Forum, or somebody else, or some combination of them, secret societies, whatever you know. If you think they're going to sit idly by and let an opportunity pass to take control of the world, your head ain't screwed on right. Those folks they want Islam everywhere. I don't
Yes.
care how peaceful, I don't care how kind. You can call it Islamophobia. I have a copy of the Quran. I know what it says. It's a very militant religion. They want everyone in the world to submit to the will of Allah, to submit to Allah.
Yes.
And if they have a chance to take advantage, and I'm going to tell you something, there's something, I can't remember the Arabic word for it, but there is something that Muslims are permitted to do in
Mm-hmm.
battle, to use deception. Think about this too. All this push for green energy and all this other stuff. Where do you think a lot of the world's petroleum reserves are outside the United States?
Over
In
in
the
the
Middle East?
Yep.
You think they're going to just sit there and part ways with their big money maker? No, they might play nice. Well, we'll explore green energy alternatives. Matter of fact, the last big climate summit, COP28, was held in Dubai
Yep.
just a couple of months ago in the United Arab Emirates, and they're talking about we're going to swear off fossil fuels. No, they're not.
No,
No, they're not.
there's no
They'll
way.
play. They're playing nice, biding their time. When the opportunity comes, they're going to strike. And
Yes.
what role does the Roman Catholic Church play? Okay, the Roman Catholic Church has been around for a very long time. They have influenced a lot of parts of the world. Every church that belongs to the Roman Catholic Church is part of their property. The
Yep.
Vatican is its own nation inside the city of Rome. They've got their own government, they've got their own currency, and who knows what they've got in the basement of the Vatican library or the archives. They exert influence all over the world. And we have a pope that's increasingly tolerant of anti biblical values and
Yes.
eco friendly, going along with the climate change fanatics and all this other stuff. And it would appear that because of Roman Catholicism's vast influence in the world, that they will have a big hand in helping to put this one world government in place.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, it is not beyond the realm of possibility or probability, as I learned from doing a study a few months ago, that a high-ranking Roman Catholic official, perhaps even a pope, could be the false prophet that works
Mm.
for the Antichrist during
Wow.
the tribulation.
Wow.
So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot more stuff I wish we could know, but they are so secretive. You know the saying, I wish I could be a fly on the wall at such and such. Yeah, I really wish I could.
That would be interesting.
Yes.
Um, my closing remarks for this broadcast is that Islam is more of a political ideology than a actual religion. We need to understand in order to understand the role that Islam plays in the end times, we have to understand that it's more of a political ideology masquerading as a religion, and they are extremely hell bent and vehement and set on absolute total world domination. So, and the Roman Catholic Church, the Pope, the one that's in there now, he is an apostate. According to your Bible, the Protestant Bible, the Pope is an apostate. There's no way that you can be a Bible believing, born again, spirit filled Christian as he claims to be and believe in and push the mess that he does. Jimmy, you got any closing thoughts for the people on this episode?
Get as close to God as you can and stay there. Get in your word, read it daily, pray daily, put
Yes.
down all known sin. If you're having trouble breaking a pattern, get with somebody to help you to be accountable. You seek deliverance if you could find someone who's a credible deliverance minister. Do
Amen.
whatever you got to do. Stay close to the Lord, because if persecution comes down, and it will sooner or later, you're not going to have time to be prepared. If you're not ready now,
No.
you're not going to be ready when it comes. So be ready.
Get ready. Get ready now. Get rapture ready. And we will see y'all next month on the next episode of the End Times Watch. Y'all take it easy. Bye-bye.